A special thank you to my YouTube members and patrons for supporting the channel and supporting my content. How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another subreddit video. Today we are going to be taking a look at r/traumatizeThemBack. I did a video on this a little while ago, but people wanted me to do another video on it, so here we are. This is a subreddit dedicated to people making whiplash judgments or comments or saying things and then being met with the same energy in response, you know, being traumatized in response to the things that they said. It's very fun. There's a variety of posts, whether they come down to women's rights, trans rights, minorities in general, you know, racism, all of that stuff. It's a fun subreddit, so we're gonna take a look at that today. But very quickly before we begin, as always, I just wanted to mention that I will be live over on my Twitch at 7 PM UK time every Thursday, so on the coming Thursday, do drop by my Twitch. It's always a good time. Other than that, let's get into the subreddit, shall we? Made my racist coworker uncomfortable after he made a joke. Oh well. I, 23 female, have been at my job for about a year. I'm one of the youngest in my department and one of the few women of my background. I usually ignore workplace banter, but one coworker, Stephen, 34 male, has a habit of making subtle comments that don't sit right with me. At first it was small things. He'd ask where I'm really from or joke about how I must be great at handling spicy food. I never made a big deal out of it, but last week at lunch, he decides that apparently I am lucky they probably needed to hit their diversity quota. I'm guessing he always does this sort of thing because everyone let out a good old chuckle. I almost hesitated and then let it go and said, maybe, but it's crazy how I got promoted so fast while you've been in the same role for like 10 years. Maybe they have a quota for that too. I'm guessing everyone got uncomfortable because the room went dead silent. You could hear the clock on the wall almost. Stephen looked at me like a kicked dog and said that he was just joking. I didn't really care to hear it, so I just smiled. Later, my manager told me Stephen felt humiliated and that I should have been more professional. I said I responded the same way he spoke to me. The classic workplace like, oh, you have to be more professional. They're allowed to make comments about you, but you can't respond because that's unprofessional. Like, no, f that. We shouldn't be allowing racists to just be racist in the workplace. If they want to bring that kind of energy, bring that energy back. We can't be normalizing that shit. We can't be letting them just walk around and do whatever the f they want. No, they have to be professional too. My dad claimed to be Mexican and severely humbled a lady. My mum and dad were at my mum's company Christmas party years back. There were drinks flowing and in the elevator on their way to gather her things with a few colleagues, a lady started to go on a rant about Mexicans. You can imagine what she said and none of it was flattering. My dad has black hair. He also worked outside very often and was quite tan still despite it being winter. Mind you, his heritage is straight up English and Irish, maybe a hint of German. He listens to her rant while the elevator moves, and just before they get off, turns and says, "My dad is Mexican." This lady went dead white and stumbled over herself trying to apologize. She proceeded to apologize to my mother for about 6 months. Every person in the elevator, aside from this lady, knew my dad was not at all Mexican. Some of them were though, so all of them refrained from telling her that he lied. She ended up leaving the company believing that she had morally offended her co-workers, actually supervisors if I remember correctly, husband, with her racist ranting. And I hope she thought twice before she opened her mouth again. I didn't realize that, you know, racism in the workplace was going to be the subject of today's video, but here we are. But once again, like, even if alcohol has been flowing, you know, there's a level of think before you speak that needs to be in place, especially when it comes to racial issues in a workplace where there are people of those races. But also, like, if she was, like, aware enough to apologize and realize the mistake she's made and upset someone, I don't understand holding those views and then being like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, but then probably continuing to hold those views. Like, I just... Racism baffles me, and there are so many people that are so comfortable in their racism that they don't even realize they're going to upset people, and that baffles me. Neighbor wouldn't quit revving his engine. I made his backyard all but unusable until he quit. Last spring, my old neighbor, who was a saint, sold her house and moved away. The people that moved in were awful. The guy, who we'll call Pete, owns some sort of a new black Mustang that sounds like it has no muffler, and he revs it up and down the subdivision streets in the evenings, literally 5 days a week, when a lot of people, myself included, sit on the back porch and watch TV during summer. It is relentless. This guy also drives up and down the state highway that is on the other side of my house doing the same thing but louder because it's a 55 mph speed limit. You can hear it for miles, and he has friends over regularly in the backyard and they sit there on the weekends and some weeknights revving up the car. It truly is so loud that you cannot do anything but wait for him to be done. There was a big Facebook conversation in the HOA group and a bunch of neighbors politely asked him not to do this. Pete's exact response: "I pay a lot of money for this house. I'll do what I want in my own yard, and the streets are public." Well, I didn't like that, so here's what I did next, with a little context. Our subdivision was about 150 houses on 300 acres. It's big. Most of the properties in this subdivision are between 1 to 4 acres in size. I have a 3-acre corner. Due to an agreed upon land split sale 10 years ago between the HOA, all neighbors within the vicinity and the former owners, my next door neighbor's house is on the smallest piece of property on the subdivision of 0.45 acres. I've attached a stunning artistic representation here. Note the green borders. Those are all 10-foot privacy fences that are white vinyl. And note the little pentagon shape that comes in handy later. The only side of Pete's house not bordered by somebody else's privacy fence is the side that my house is on. I haven't looked at this image. Maybe I should. Oh, okay, it's like a diagram. I see. Well, I know from 15 years of living here that anytime I have a fire on the side of the yard next to Pete's, the smoke is guaranteed to travel in the direction of Pete's house. I know this because I couldn't ever have a fire when my old neighbor was outside, as it would literally fill her backyard with smoke, if ever the wood had even a hint of moisture in it. So I moved my fire pit, about a dozen years ago, to the other side of my house and towards the road so that I could be a good neighbor. And you know, Pete letting me know that he wouldn't quit making noise reminded me that I just loved having my fire pit right in the middle of my backyard. That's where the little pentagon is in the diagram above. It took me a single week to dig up the pavers and blocks, move them back to my preferred spot, and get myself a fire going in my new fire pit. I just need to wait until Pete had people over. I made sure the inaugural fire was a good one. Pete had friends over, it was a nice day, and so I started the fire. Got it just about started, and then I added all the wettest, grossest wood I could. And about 10 minutes later, Pete and all his friends were visibly upset by the stench, so they all went in. They came back out a little later. I added more wet, nasty wood. They went in again. I kept that up the entire day, and then I added a bunch of grass clippings to keep it going overnight. The next day, still smoldering, still smelling awful. I put out a Facebook post on the HOA website to let everyone know I'd be continuing to utilize my fire pit as long as possible, so they could bring me their lawn scraps. I had about 20 people respond in a few hours saying their clippings were all mine. I kept that fire going. My dogs are good alarms, and they rush outside anytime anybody is in Pete's backyard. So I would hear the dogs scramble out and go add more clippings. After about 3 weeks, Pete and his wife came out and very kindly asked me what was going on with the fire pit. She very politely informed me that her hair would smell like a campfire if she went into her backyard for any amount of time, and they could smell it coming into their house through their ductwork. She said I was making it hard for him to enjoy his backyard with his friends. They asked me if I could ease back with the fire because I probably didn't know that it was impacting so much of their home life. I looked at him and his wife, and I said that it was clear that sometimes we didn't recognize how big of an effect something could have on our neighbors until they told us about it. But then I said, as objectively as possible, that I normally live by the same "I'll do what I want in my yard" thought process as Pete does. I have a right to enjoy my yard. I looked at Pete dead in the eyes and said, "And I know you support that because of how the conversation concluded about your car, right, Pete?" He looked at me like I scratched his favorite CD. He knew what I was doing. And his wife looked at him and it just dawned on her. She said she gets it and we won't hear the Mustang anymore. I said, "Thanks." I took a gamble and put the fire out right after that. It was the right call. The classic, "Oh, you're doing a thing that no one else likes? Well, I'll do something you don't like and also can't do anything about. We've got a mutual agreement there, right? That it's okay to do that? Oh, you don't like it? That's funny, isn't it?" I had a similar thing when I used to live with my parents. We had some neighbors down the street that would blast music all the time, like multiple times a day, multiple times a week, especially on weekends when everybody wants to be home and chilling. They would go out into their garden with massive speakers and blast music to the extent where when I had noise cancelling headphones on and my window was closed, I could still hear it, let alone in the middle of summer when I had my window open. And they would do this until like 12 o'clock at night, and it was fucking abhorrent. Everybody hated it. So one day, I actually have a video of this on my YouTube channel, but one day I took out one of my massive bass amps that my dad gave me, and I blasted metal through it.
They were warned.
Just blasted it, ran a whole song at full volume, turned it off, and their music had gotten even louder, classically. Oh, by the way, before I blasted the music, I plugged in a mic and went, "We've asked you to stop, this is what you get," and then blasted it. After I turned off the music, their music was even louder, and one of their neighbors came out and started yelling at them to turn their shit off because they'd been asked multiple times, and then we never heard music from them again after that point. So yeah, that was nice. That was a good result. Like, you can listen to music in your garden. I don't give a shit about that. But at least listen to it in a level where it isn't disrupting other people, right? Like, I shouldn't have to wear noise cancelling headphones, but if I'm wearing noise cancelling headphones and I can still hear your music, that's an issue. And I probably wouldn't have minded so much if their music tastes weren't so shit. So yeah, no, I feel you, OP. I feel you very much with this post, because I've gone through a similar thing. There used to be a neighbor at my parents as well that would do a similar thing with his motorbike. He would just rev it up and down the street, and that was annoying everybody as well. I'm also really glad I don't live there. It's actually a really nice area. The houses are quite big and it's quite cushy, but for some reason some of the neighbors were just shit. Why does she get to work from home and I can't? At my job, we are supposed to be in the office a couple days a week. I am in almost every day as that's my preference, while others stick to their WFH days quite strictly, which is also fine. But I have one colleague who I work with closely that previously came into the office but now gets to work from home full time. And I'll add, she is great at her job and a joy to work with. Slowly, it was noticed by a few people that she was never in office, and they started making comments how it was strange and she was lucky, must have found a reason for an exemption, and has a special arrangement. They would look at me and wait for me to say something negative or complain, but I wouldn't say much other than that she works from home due to personal reasons, as it's not my info to share with others. And she is always available virtually if people need to meet or chat about a project. We were having a larger Teams meeting recently, and one of the nosy Nancys raised it in a passive-aggressive way, saying how she hasn't seen her in ages and she's always at home, and it would be great to see her in the office sometimes, as their team all have to be in a couple days a week. I sat there sipping my tea while my coworker drops the bomb that her husband has been having seizures due to a rapidly growing brain tumor and can't be left alone. She went on to add how she wishes she could get out the house more often, but can't even leave for coffee or groceries unless one of the kids is home, or she can get a friend/family member to stop by, and that the other option was to just go on leave, but it felt like it would be a burden on the team and she can still get the work done from home. Let's just say the horrified looks people had and awkward silence has ensured that this hasn't come up since. And that's why you don't meddle in people's personal business, everybody. Just leave it. Like, yeah, it's nice to work from home, and you know, a lot of people would probably like to do that more often, but if someone is working from home full time, there's probably a reason. It could be something like this. It could just be that they have an injury or a disability or an illness. It could be anything, but you know what? It's not your business to pry. It's not your business to pry at all. Snap back at protesters. I went to Planned Parenthood when I was between insurances and had a cancer scare. I'm good, came back negative, just something they were worried about based on my ultrasound and family medical history. Well, they had me come in to discuss the results, which seemed bad to me, so I was already anxious before I got there. I had to pull past a group of protesters to get to the parking lot, and they were all trying to shove brochures at my car and holding signs of dead babies or whatever. As I got out of my car to walk into the clinic, a man shouted at me, "You have other options!" Pissed, I looked at him and snapped, "Oh great, you have another option for ovarian cancer?" Because I would love to hear it. Dear editors, I witnessed that man's mouth snap shut and stay shut while he packed up his stuff to leave. This is once again like, just other people's business is not your concern, stay the fuck out. Protesters at places like Planned Parenthood piss me off because it's called Planned Parenthood. Options are the whole point. You go in there and they don't go, "Oh, you're here for an abortion." They go, "Here are the options, we're going to talk through exactly what all of them entail and exactly what your responsibilities will be and like exactly what you need to do," you know? They go, "If you abort, here's what's going to happen. If you want to keep the child, here's what's going to happen." All of that stuff. But also, yeah, there's plenty of stuff there that isn't related to pregnancy at all. But protesters don't give a shit about that. They just want to be out there harassing people who want to find out what their options are, who are already in a really vulnerable position. It helps nobody. Fuck people that protest outside of places like Planned Parenthood. Fuck them all. I'm sure she wishes that too. I had to pick up my kiddo from school early for a 2-hour drive to a doctor appointment. As I'm waiting for her to come to the office, the secretary says to another employee, "I wish my mum picked me up for a McDonald's and spa day when I was in school." I enthusiastically replied, "I'm sure daughter's name would love that too. Unfortunately, we're headed to the hospital to check the status of her brain tumor." Yep, that's a snapback. Once again, people just not minding their own business and throwing judgments out when they have no idea what's really going on. I wasn't expecting the subject of this video to be either workplace racism or cancer though. No, I really can't have kids. I'm on Facebook dating. I met this guy and we started talking for a little while before he asked me what I want. I said, a partner. He said, I want to get married and have kids. So I reluctantly informed him that I can't have kids. This is how the conversation went. Why can't you have kids? Don't you want kids? I want them desperately, but I can't have them. Why not? I had cancer and had to get a hysterectomy. God can make all things whole. You can have kids. Well, God can't grow me back my uterus. I really can't have kids. Block. I don't even know what to say about that. If God can make all things whole. Yeah, how many people have you heard about, you know, the miracle of God growing back their uterus after they had it removed? Yeah, I have no words. I have no words. I'm sorry what you went through, OP. I'm sorry the people you have to deal with. Yeah. Also, I don't know how long you were talking to this person for. I hope it was a decent amount of time before this happened, because someone bringing up that they want to get married and have kids like really early into talking with someone is a big red flag to me. I don't know. It's just throwing commitments on a person you've been talking to for a day. It's always, I just find that a huge red flag personally. I just really do. Anyway, that's where I'm going to end the video, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed. Oh boy. If you would like to support me in making more content like this, then I have a Patreon in the description down below, or equally you can click on that join button on the channel to support me. It helps a lot more than you might realize, but by no means should you feel like you have to. I'm going to keep making content regardless. A huge, massive special thank you to all of the wonderful, amazing YouTube members and patrons that do support me. All of your names are on screen right now. It genuinely helps so much, and it genuinely means so much. So thank you to everyone that does. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace out.